All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you guys are enjoying the weather today. It's pretty gloomy outside, but I have to say I do love the rain and the cold, but it does make it hard to be productive. But we're going to talk about archetypes today. We're going to continue on from yesterday's conversation. Yesterday, we looked at the clip from Karate Kid and how Mr. Miyagi gave Daniel a car and talked to him about balance. We also talked about complex characters briefly and looking at, how if characters are really in multiple different types of archetypes in different areas of the story, that they become a complex character. We also talked about archetypes being patterns of behaviors that are familiar to everybody, like the wise old man, right? We all have a mentor or somebody who helps us in some way. And we also have, this idea of being scared and freezing. And that's kind of our survival mode. That's how we grow. That's how we learn. So archetypes are pretty cool. And they're pretty much, and think of your favorite video game, think of your favorite story or movie. They're all archetypes in there. All right, so we're going to move forward and look at a clip from Cobra Kai, which is the newly kind of revived story to the Karate Kid movies, the 1984 Karate Kid movies. And we have, Ralph Macchio's character, well, I guess he's Daniel, and then you have Johnny Lawrence, and so they were kind of like the Johnny Lawrence was like the villain in the karate movies, and Daniel was like the protagonist, the everyman, if you will. And so in the new Cobra Kai season, Johnny Lawrence has opened his own dojo, and he's called it Cobra Kai, which is originally led by John Kreese, who was awful. He was like the ultra mega villain. But in Cobra Kai, you kind of learn his backstory, so that's cool. So in this storyline, in this season, Miguel had been paralyzed after being kicked over the ledge in a fight at school. And so Johnny, his sensei, has been trying to help him recover. He has recently lost his dojo and students after being betrayed by his former teacher, John Kreese. He's also trying to start talking to Allie, his former high school girlfriend, which actually was the girl in the previous clip when he was going to go hang out with his girlfriend for his birthday. That was Allie, and Daniel took Allie technically from Johnny, and so Allie has reached out to Johnny again on Facebook, and that's him trying to establish this kind of nostalgic memory with her again. So take a second and pause my video and watch this clip. It's only 2.5 minutes long, and then we'll talk about the next section. All right, let's pause and watch today's video. Okay, so we're going to talk about the following 5 questions based on this particular scene. So we are going to kind of mirror exactly what we did yesterday. What do you notice about the relationship between these two characters? How would you describe Johnny? What kind of archetype do we think Johnny might be? And I did hyperlink yesterday's resource right here in case you need to pull it open again. What parts of his character make him more complex than just the archetype he fits? And then how does this particular scene build towards a larger lesson? So we notice that they're kind of similar. They're kind of equal. There's still that teacher sensei moment. There's still that mentor mentee, but it's very honest. It's very raw. They're kind of talking smack to each other, but with the purpose of trying to make each other better, especially on Johnny's part. Johnny's funny. He's unconventional. Clearly, if you know anything about the previous movies, Johnny Lawrence has lost everything after that tournament with Daniel, and he kind of plummeted. He lost his family. He kind of lives in a crappy apartment. Now that he's lost his dojo, he's kind of hit rock bottom. He doesn't really fit in anywhere. But he's also kind of quietly loving and wise and supportive, and he really does try to teach people from his mistakes, even though he's kind of had like he has a rougher exterior. So again, this reminds you about archetypes, that these are the types of patterns of behavior that are familiar to people. We all know some sort of, rugged, rough around the edges person who really does have good intentions. So to think about, him, we could also consider him the sage, but because he has other different types of, characteristics, he could also be the outlaw or the rebel. He doesn't abide by society's demands. He doesn't always do things the right or polished way. He's very rough. He's not a good dad, but he tries to redeem himself. He knows that he's made a lot of mistakes, but at the same time, he doesn't really necessarily apologize for that. He just tries to do better. So we could see him as both the sage and the rebel or the outlaw, and that's what makes him a complex character. So when you're trying to figure out if this character is somebody who's complex, you want to think about, do they grow over time? Do they have beliefs that go against a particular group? Do they act different in different situations? Are they flawed? Do their flaws make them likable and relatable, or kind of, somebody that we don't really want to get to know? And what do they do that is different than what people might usually expect? What are their thoughts, actions, or words reveal or challenge the culture in which they live? So it's really people that have these unexpected journeys, right? We don't necessarily, always see the happy ending, but that's what makes them relatable. And so for this last question about this particular scene with Miguel, remember Miguel was paralyzed and Johnny's trying to make him walk again. So this particular scene contributes to the plot or builds a theme because this shows how much, not only Miguel can learn from Johnny, but how much Johnny can also grow from Miguel. Miguel also gives him a healthy dose of reality, like, stop acting like this. You're doing all these things when I know you're really this kind of person. Miguel also is able to stand, literally and figuratively, stands up to Johnny and says something to him, but he's also literally standing. Johnny at this point starts kind of facing the reality we see in the message that he starts texting or messaging, I guess, private messaging Allie. But it also shows this idea about, like, these unconventional, unorthodox methods sometimes work. It's not always the easiest way to go, but it's sometimes falling flat on our face or hitting rock bottom that teach us the best things about life, and that we need to do that with support. All right, so for today, I did ask that you read the story Lather and Nothing Else, and I believe this was by Hernando Diaz, I believe. You'll make a copy of this. Yesterday I did post a PDF. So this story is really interesting. It's about this really tough, cruel captain, and he goes in for a shave, and you kind of really learn a lot about the barber and the way that he does his work. But you learn some other things that, this captain is brutal and he murders people, the townspeople, and he I guess these rebels, and he hangs them up in this courtyard to instill fear in other people. And so this barber is part of this rebel group, but he also has this choice whether or not, this captain deserves to be murdered, and how easy it would be to do that right there. He's got a razor in his hand. He's right next to that major artery in his neck, and he's really fighting with himself and giving himself reasons to do it, but then also, considering the fact that he is a person of integrity and he really does take pride in his job. So he wants to do a good job, but, he's really wrestling with whether or not to be the true rebel he wants to be and murder this guy for all of the horrible things he's done. So for this response, after you read it, you're going to answer these 3 questions, okay? And I did put the text here again, but you do need to respond to these 3 questions before midnight in order to get your attendance credit. So how would you describe Captain Torres and the barber? So make sure you read through that. What archetype does Captain Torres most match or follow? And then here's the archetypes resource for you to review. And then what makes the barber a complex character? Remember, this means he probably would fit in more than one different type of archetype. And this resource right here does go through and gives you some explanations of where you might be able to find some helpful reasons to be able to discuss whether, how this barber is complex. So use these resources in here for you to help you answer these 3 questions, okay? And then we'll talk a little bit more about this story in a specific place tomorrow. We're also going to have our class competition tomorrow, where I'm going to give you a list of about 20 different familiar characters from movies and stories, and you'll have to let me know what archetype they fit. And if you can get all of them correct, or the most of them correct, I'll send you a little something in your mail. All right. That's going to be through Zoom, so make sure you're on time tomorrow to our class. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Let me know if you need anything, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.